Hey guys, what's going on? It's Filmington, and in today's video we're going to be doing a mail bin. Stuff I've picked up over the last maybe 2.5 months. This should be interesting for most of you, and without further ado, let's get started. Shohei Otani, base, lot, US 1, Topps Update 2018. Picked up 10 of these cards. Otani, and I briefly talked about this in a previous video, but he's one of the young players that I think's been less affected by the suspension in play. He would have still been recovering from Tommy John. He went under the knife in, I think, October or November 2018, so that makes about 18 months. And usually that's around the time frame where pitchers regain their control. Sometimes they're able to get their velocity back a little bit sooner than that. But all in all, this would have been somewhat of a partial season for Otani from a pitcher standpoint. Now, he could have still contributed offensively, but I personally think that what really drives Otani's value in the hobby is his ability to be allowed to be a hitter and pitcher at the same time. And, of course, he has to excel at both of those things. Now, we've seen in the past his ability to be proficient, both from the pitching perspective and as a batter. If you don't remember him pitching, then look back at 2018. He was quite dominant, guys, quite dominant. So there's going to be some people in the hobby that you talk to that say, oh, well, I want to see him as a hitter, see what he can do. He should just focus on that. Nobody in the hobby cares about pitchers. Well, I think those people are short-sighted and wrong. And I think they're failing to realize what made Otani unique to begin with. I paid about $5 or $6 a card for these, and you probably saw in the back I have some Shane Biebers. I just took advantage of the shipping discount from the same seller, and I picked up about 10 of these, paid about a dollar. Shane Bieber's a guy who I like as a pitcher, but maybe not as much as Walker Buehler. Certainly not as much as Walker Buehler or Jack Flaherty. He had really great stats last year, but he does give up a lot of hard contact still. All right, next up is going to be this beautiful card right here. Look at that. 2010 Bowman Sterling prospect autograph, technically a refractor, on-card autograph, beautiful shine. At the time of when I purchased this, which was, I believe, in April, I was basically using April of 2019's prices. I was looking at those as a baseline and trying not to pay more than double of any of Trout's rookie cards. Just a kind of simple, stupid rule I was following. Also, I was looking at my current PC of Trout, and I was like, I only really have one Trout rookie card auto, so, maybe I should try to build that up. And looking at his other autographs, specifically rookie autographs, you look at the finest autographs in gem mint condition, whether that's PSA or Beckett, those are now over $4,000. You look at the Bowman Sterling from 2009, that's now over $4,000. And granted, the Topps finest autographs are numbered. I thought this was a great buy, and I got it for under $2,000. I don't know if this card will ever sell again for under $2,000. What makes this an awesome card is that it has a 10 autograph, which is actually pretty tough to find. If you know this card, you'd know that. A lot of 8s, 9s, even 7 autographs you see out there. Super streaky. I think it's actually rumored that people have wiped the autos off these cards and have redrawn them. But clearly that's not going to be mine because Beckett has never made a mistake ever, right? But awesome card there. Next up, we have a different type of player. This is Marco Luciano, purple refractor, first Bowman Chrome autograph, True Gem Mint. Auto 10. So with the indefinite suspension in play, I foresaw a shift of money into the more proven assets, the ones that are Hall of Fame bound or potentially already in the Hall of Fame. So money from the young players, money from the young unproven prospects into the more proven commodities. And this was part of the reason behind me selling a lot of my first Bowman Chrome prospect autograph cards in March and April. You saw some of that money go into Bonds and Clemens in a recent video. You'll also see more of that go into Trout towards the end of this video. You look at something like suspension in play, and at a very superficial level, you might think, well, it affects everybody the same or similarly. It's something that's relative across the board. So it really shouldn't hurt one player over another player. But I would argue that investors and collectors are a little bit more sophisticated than that. You think about something like diminishing returns. So a proven commodity, a proven veteran like Mike Trout, we already know who he is. He has a stellar resume already. Same goes for a player like Kershaw. So what more are we going to find out from him if he plays this year versus if he doesn't? We already know who he is. You also look at somebody like Albert Pujols, where literally his offensive contributions are diminishing. So he's closing in on career milestones, home run perspective and others, but his WAR is basically zero. Actually, it's been zero for the last several years. So, and this is how Hall of Fame ballots are cast nowadays. You look at somebody like Larry Walker, who definitely benefited from having those advanced stats. Counting stats still matter as well. They'll always be part of the game. They'll always be part of how MVPs and Hall of Famers are decided, but advanced stats are growing in importance. And there's no denying that. We could argue against whether it makes sense, whether it's fair all day, but we're not here to do that. Facts are facts. Another thing that's hurting prospects, like Marco Luciano, is, for me, age is a key variable that matters for a lot of these guys, whether they're 17, 18, or 19. That matters a lot. You look at somebody like Juan Soto or Acuna, and I would argue that they've shown a lot at this point, and I think they're already sure things, but you start to compare them to former legends of the game like Mickey Mantle, etc., and how much they've been able to accomplish under the age of 25. And, age, I think, is very important. And the younger you are, the more unproven you are. I think it's more of a variable in what drives speculators into investing in you. Another variable has to do with opportunity cost of capital, specifically talking about holding periods and the time it takes to see appreciation in an asset. So a lot of people, speculators, investors that buy prospect cards like this one, they hold them, and their exit strategy happens to be when the player gets called up to the major league level. And there is a season, the fact that minor leagues might not happen, plus service time changes, plus expanded MLB rosters, there are certain minor league players that might get called up earlier. But there's going to be a lot of players probably closer to the A level where Marco Luciano is today, that will get delayed and hurt from this. And their timeline just got extended in a negative way. And just to provide a little bit more insight into what I'm doing, Marco Luciano, at least right now, is the only prospect that I'm buying. It doesn't mean that I think that he has a greater probability for success versus a Wander Franco. But back in 2014, when I got into Bowman Chrome and I really got back into the hobby hard, I was, at the time, and I still am, I was a big fantasy baseball guy. I really liked the gambling, the prospecting aspect, and something that fantasy baseball could never provide me. And it didn't matter how much the stakes of the league were, but I could never get as much direct exposure into a single player's on-the-field performance as I can with buying their cards here. With Luciano, he checks off all the boxes, what I look for: the power, speed. He's got plate discipline, his ability to take bases as well as minimize the strikeouts. I think he's still 18 years old. He plays a premium position. Yep. He plays a premium position at shortstop, at least for the time being. They might shift him to something else, but and he also plays in a great market. Okay, San Francisco, just because that their team sucks, it doesn't mean their market is bad. That's a very good baseball market. Pick this up from a Facebook group. And lately I've been trying to shy away and move away from the purple refractors in favor of the more standard colors. But with this card, the subs were right. The auto was nice and clean, and the player was who I was looking for. Plus the price was right. That mattered most. And next up, we have one that you guys will love. 2018 Topps Chrome Update, Juan Soto. This is his refractor, number to 250. Look at that shine. Beautiful card. So again, I tried not to pick up too many young players unless the price was right. I think even the likes of Soto and Acuna, who many people, including myself, are extremely confident in from a long-term investing purpose or perspective, they could experience some volatility if there's no baseball this year. So didn't want to go too crazy with the Acuna and Soto types, but this was roughly half the price of what PSA 10s have gone for. And I did some digging. The True Gem Pop on this card is $14. So this is, of course, a True Gem Plus. Now, you look at the US 300 Topps Update card. You look at the HMT 55 Topps Chrome Update card. We're talking about the base cards here. And there hasn't really been a definitive winner. Maybe right now the paper update has taken like a $10 lead. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at prices in the last couple weeks. But when you compare the US 300 Gold parallel, which sells for about $1,100 versus this card, which sells for about the same, maybe a little bit more on a PSA 10, then you might come to the conclusion that this is undervalued because there are roughly 10%, a little bit more than 10% as many of these out there, number to 250 versus number to 2018. Now, I'm not suggesting that the gold is overvalued because I love the gold card. I actually have, I think, 5 of those, but this one could be an attractive buy. And talked about this, I think, in a recent video, but whether you like Soto more or Acuna more, that's up to you. I can see arguments on both sides. Personally, I think that Soto is going to have the better career as a hitter, but I think that Acuna is going to have the better career as an overall player. He obviously contributes on multiple sides of the ball, where Soto is still working on his defense and doesn't have the upside stolen base wise. But one of the things you can't argue against is that there are very few Juan Soto rookie cards versus Acuna. And I'll just go down a list of a bunch where Acuna has one, but Soto does not. And there are many others as well. But Soto is not in regular Topps Chrome. He is not in Topps Chrome Sapphire, which is one of Acuna's best investment cards. He is not in Bowman Chrome First as a non-autograph. He only has autographs. Also in 2016 Bowman Chrome, where his autograph was featured, he didn't have any shimmers. He's also not in Topps Series 2 in 2018. He doesn't have a factory set variation. He doesn't have a mega box first Bowman card like Acuna does. So if you're to take maybe the most popular rookie cards across the two, you'll notice that Soto has roughly half as many as Acuna, which is interesting. All right, so who is next? Let's do another shiny card. Gleyber Torres, 2018 Topps Chrome Sapphire, the horizontal pose from his Series 2 short print. This is the base card. I think people believe there are roughly 285 of these that exist. This is raw card review graded 9.5. Not the same thing as a 9.5, but if you ask me, it's pretty close. It has the potential to be a 9.5 if I submit it to Beckett. The potential. It's not a sure thing. So this was a buy it now or best offer. I missed out on a True Gem BGS 9.5 a few days earlier before I got this, and it was annoying because the seller never countered my first offer. My first offer was strong. It didn't get auto rejected. And the price that was accepted was lower than what my second offer would have been, to be honest. So missed out on that and got this for a pretty good price. Basically, I saw what the Series 2 short print was selling for, and it wasn't really that much of a difference. So specifically, PSA 10 horizontal short print from Series 2 was selling for close to $400. This was selling for just a few $100s more. Now, it's not a PSA 10. It's not even a BGS 9.5. But I didn't really see the big difference that I saw with Acuna. So I looked at that from a multiplier type perspective. With Acuna, his Topps Chrome Sapphire versus the number 699 short print, bat down. And I thought that this presented a good buying opportunity. So I ended up selling my short prints and PSA 10s of Torres. I had 2 of them. Used that to fund this purchase. Now, I'm probably going to submit this to Beckett today, actually. I already have the order form made up, so it's not that I probably will, I definitely will. And I'm not putting a minimum grade. I have confidence that I can crack the slab without damaging the card. And then I'll be able to see the card a little bit better than I can now because, yeah, you can't really tell if there's any surface issues because that card saver is pretty scratched up in itself. So if I don't get a 9.5, to be candid, I'll pop it out and maybe I'll, be able to reevaluate the surface and think about submitting it to either PSA or SGC. But I can't see the surface right now, and I might not be able to see the surface if it's in a Beckett slab, whether it's a 9 or 9.5, because the Beckett slabs are pretty thick, to be honest. All right, enough with Torres. Next up is this guy. Go in vintage or vintage modern, 1985, whatever that is. I don't know, 35 years old. If it's not vintage, it's 35 years old. This was an auction win, and this is a beautiful looking card, guys. So PSA 9s cost roughly half, maybe even less than half of what a Bonds 86 Topps Tiffany PSA 9 would go for. Yet if you look at the PSA 10s versus the Bonds Tiffany rookie from 86 versus the Clemens Tiffany rookie in 85, you'll notice that Clemens sells for a lot more, roughly double in recent years. Now things have maybe changed over the last few weeks where we've seen comps, a lot of comps of that Bonds Tiffany card. That's gone up quite a bit. It's now in the mid 3,000 range. Now, obviously, the valuation of the 10s is heavily influenced by PSA population. So this card in a 10, there's probably well under 100 of them, where there's a far greater amount of the Bonds in 86. But anyways, I thought it was still a great buy considering how all of the other cards from seemingly like this year, 84, 86, 87, 88, they're all going nuts of all those key rookies, whether they took steroids or didn't, whether they're in the Hall of Fame or not. And this is a beautiful card. Look at that. It's got a little bit of tilt on the front, but overall, really nicely centered. I looked at other 9s. The corners look pretty sharp. And the back is it's no slouch, guys. Look at those corners. Look at those edges. It's going to have a higher quality cardstock to be able to kind of have those corners and edges where a non-Tiffany card might not have it so easy. I'm going to try to cross this over to SGC. I'm going to try to get that 9.5 Mint Plus grade that PSA does not have at this point. So I'm either going to A, crack it out, or B, submit it in the slab with a minimum grade of 9. You might ask, well, if you want a 9.5, why not a minimum grade of 9.5? The reason for that is if I do submit this in the slab, I just think that the lower the minimum grade, the lower the risk there is on the grader's behalf in snapping the card out of its case. So the grader doesn't need to already have an assigned grade in mind before they crack it out. They just need to be comfortable that it's at least the minimum grade that the submitter has chosen, right? So doesn't mean that I have a higher chance of getting that SGC 9.5, but it does mean there's a greater chance that they crack this to then decide if it's worthy of an SGC 9.5. And this is an example, I think. This instance is a great example of buy the card, not the grade. It's never been more true with all the options that are out there in the marketplace today. You have SGC, which has emerged as a third viable option for modern cards. This, of course, from 85, SGC was probably always a third viable option. But just plainly, especially when you're looking at modern cards as well, you have more options for grades. So with a PSA 9, if it looks to be a PSA 9, why not send it off to SGC and get a 9.5 bump? Because 9.5 comps are selling for greater than all of the 9s from any of the three brands right now. If you have a strong PSA 10, then maybe you want to send it to SGC and cross it to a SGC 10 gold label. If you have a strong SGC 10 non-pristine, we're talking SGC 10 gem mint, then maybe you want to cross it over to PSA to try to get that PSA 10. So there's a lot more options for crossing it over. If it doesn't matter for you, if you're not big into crossing, then guess what? you'll buy the card and maybe you'll sell it to somebody else who does care. Whether they're a collector, they're an investor, they do care about crossing it. So anyways, that was just a thought I had. All right, next up, we're going with a modern card of Christian Yelich. This was a buy it now or best offer. It had been listed for just a few hours. I thought I got a pretty good deal on this. This is his camo. PSA 10, of course, rookie card from 2013. And it's a beautiful card. The pop is well under 10 on this, which is much fewer than the Target Red, which I also thought was criminally undervalued. And I actually gave up my Target Red. And regretfully, it was a couple weeks before his base card exploded. And I had a bit of seller's remorse, so I went and picked this one up. And camos actually usually outsell the Target Red. If you're to look at other players like Mookie Betts, pretty much any player aside from Arenado, you'll see that the camos do very well. And I thought I got a pretty buyer-friendly multiplier on this. It was way less than double the prices of the gold at the time. There's far greater amount of golds. And Yelich, yeah, I like him a lot. I felt like I needed some sort of allocation in him. I just think he's been one of the best, probably the best offensive player in the National League for 2 years in a row. And he's been given some extra time to recover from his knee injury. So I think the future is bright for Yelich. All right, here's a banger. Whoa. US 175, 2011 Topps Update Mike Trout Gold Parallel, numbered to 2011. Picked this up from a friend. It's a beautiful card. Look at that. Really sharp. Basically, I was looking at the prices of the 2011 Topps Update base and a PSA 10 go bonkers. And I was like, oh, man. I picked up mine a year ago for $850. This would be like 3.5, almost 4 times return. I got a decent penny for it. But this is what made it all possible. I felt comfortable getting rid of the base card because this is my fallback, and it's a beautiful fallback. I actually used to have another gold, but I sold it maybe a little too early. Doubled my money on that one too in less than a year. But this one I'll be holding on to, I think, for a while. Oh, man, that's beautiful. Sorry if I'm making you guys seasick by holding the cards, but a lot of these just present better if I hold them closer, I think. I'm going to be sending this one to Beckett in that order. You saw the Gleyber card. There's going to be one other card that I haven't shown and I won't be showing in today's video, but basically $165 for 3 cards. I think I elected the 10-day turnaround, and because they're higher valued cards, it is a little bit more expensive. So I want to get those cards back sooner, I think. Why am I submitting it to Beckett and not PSA? I think Beckett's really going to appreciate the centering on this. I think it's centered very well. Most people think, and it's actually kind of widely known, that Beckett is more strict than PSA on centering. PSA is known to be more strict on corners and edges. And this has a little corner thing right here. So I just think it's a strong Beckett candidate. The edges actually are really nice. The surface, there is a little line across the top, which you may or may not, yeah, you could probably see that. Is it here or is it here? I forget, but there's a little line. Yeah, there's a little line across the top that will probably affect the grading as well. But it just presents really well. And I'm going to love to have this on my PC. You look at the PSA 9s out there too, and I'm just not really a fan of what they look like. A lot of the PSA 9s are super off-centered, left to right. So I don't think I really need the PSA badge for this card to sell really well when I eventually want to sell it. Sweet card. Love it. And this video wouldn't be complete if we didn't talk about Topps Project 2020. So before I get into this specific card, I'm going to talk about my thoughts on the set as a whole, which I haven't really done yet in a video. So, if you look at Topps Project 2020 at a high level, you're going to see some pretty clear parallels, I would say, with the Topps Living set, which debuted in 2018. They're not pack-pulled products. You buy them from Topps.com directly. The print runs for each card are based on demand within the first window of time after the card's launched. The print run for the entire set is unknowable until many, many months after the product is first released. The earliest and most short printed cards in the set tend to sell for the most in the secondary market, both in the short term and in the long term. They're different in that they sell at much different price points. And I think that Topps Project 2020 probably benefits from having a known checklist in advance, having that fixed. I think that definitely benefits the project. I would say personally that Project 2020 was a better idea from Topps and one with a superior execution versus Topps Living, because it's really a way for Topps to attract not just collectors and flippers, but also followers of the artists. So as a collector, one can buy up all of the players of a particular artist, or all of the artist contributions of a particular player, or they might even choose to collect the entire set, the complete set. And I don't know, I think long-term sustainability of this product has a lot to do with how Topps evolves this set over time, what they do next year. This card here, this was me taking advantage of a blatant mispricing. I think the cards are selling for $175, $200, and somebody listed this at $99. Buy it now. So I picked it up, and the seller was nice enough to sell it to me for the agreed upon price. But if you follow me on Instagram, you already know that I picked up the 1-of-1 gold frame card. Basically, it's very similar. It has a gold frame. It's machine stamped 1-of-1 on the back. This one is not. It's also in a one-touch. I do not have that to show live because I actually flipped it. I sold it yesterday, so I had it for about 3 weeks. So the 1-of-1, you might want to know my motivations of buying that. Seemed like a really risky move. So for me, it wasn't just an investment in Trout. It wasn't just an investment in the specific artist, Ermsey, who's drawn this. And I've grown actually to really enjoy a lot of Ermsey's contributions. And it wasn't even just an investment in the Trout Ermsey card, which I honestly feel that this is going to be the most iconic design from this set. And I think it's going to be symbolic of this difficult period for years to come. But the big investment that I made in the 1-of-1 was in the momentum of Topps Project as a set, as a whole. I saw that several Topps products were being delayed. I thought that the hype train would grow larger and larger, especially without the distractions from 2020 Bowman or Topps Series 2, which has also been delayed. And I picked this up days before the Ben Baller Trout release. And Ben Baller, if you don't know him, he's one of the more famous artists in the set, involved in the set. So I wasn't intimidated by the Ben Baller Trout because I knew, or at least I thought, that the popularity in the set had increased enough to the point where the Ben Baller print run was likely going to be much greater. Now, it ended up being 12 times. The base print run was close to 35,000, where with this, it's around 2,900. And also, my mindset was that at the time, and it still is actually, any of the ensuing Trout contributions, after Ben Baller, it was any of the additional 17 Trout contributions. I thought if they were a success, it would lead to more money in the project. It would lead to a bigger hype train. It would lead to more money that would also go to the Ermsey Trout, the more short printed cards in the set. So I picked up the 1-of-1 when the base card was about 200. Now the base card, this one right here, is about $430-ish. It surpassed 500. It came back down a bit. And I don't think there's really a multiplier where you can linearly derive the 1-of-1 or artist proof, which are numbered to 20 from the base card. But I do think that the relative valuations of the different base cards is in some way connected to the value of the 1-of-1s. And I personally think this is the Trout 1-of-1 to own from the set. Outside of Ben Baller, who's already really popular, if he was to grow his reputation by 5 times, I think that would be the only way that this wouldn't be the Trout design that people will care about in the next 1 to 5 years. Regardless of what happens to the long-term sustainability of this set, this is a product. I think that this is going to be the base card that people will have the eBay search alerts for, not the Ben Baller, not the Thiel, not the weird Fuji design. And over the last few weeks, actually, we've seen a run up in a lot of the other base cards from other artists, which I think is great news for the set. And again, great news for the Ermsey Trout. One of the nice things about picking up really rare assets, in this case, we're talking about baseball cards, whether they're numbered to 1 or 5 or even 10, if there's not a lot of comps, if there aren't any comps from any other players in the set, then what I think I got was something called an illiquidity discount, just based off of there being more risk in the new owner of the card that does buy the card from said seller. It might take a little bit longer to sell the card. It's going to be clearly more difficult to appraise the card's worth, and that's going to scare off a lot of potential buyers. All right, guys, that is it for today. Hopefully you liked what you saw. Hopefully I provided some insight as well. Thanks so much, guys, for watching. Enjoy the rest of your days. Like, comment, subscribe. Filmington out.